Talking Oregon football with Spencer McLaughlin. He's kind enough to go through all the positions, both sides of the football. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide in the description section. Be looking out for Spencer's banner. That's where you can track him on X and so forth. All right, folks, we're moving to the defense. Get ready to be impressed because this is a unit that obviously scuffled in 2022. It was a fun season to watch if you weren't invested in Oregon football, just like me, just watching the games and 42-40. Here we've got another one going. But number 22 in total defense, number 20 in yards per play against, number 9 in scoring defense, 27th against the rush. That's yards per carry. I like to go to the yards per play metric. And 13th in pass efficiency defense. Against that offensive schedule with the likes of, we could run down the list, pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's hard to not feel good. There are a lot of key losses, particularly along the interior of the defensive line. So Brandon Dorlus was Oregon's best defensive lineman last year. He's gone. He's off to the NFL. He'll be probably early to mid-round draft pick. You lose Popo Amavai, who was a seventh-year senior, Taki Taimani, and Casey Rogers, who were both just rock solid and, had their moments of being high-impact guys, but really just high-end capable starters. And so they bring in Jamari Caldwell, second-team All-Big 12 transfer from Houston, and then that's what spring football is for. Like one of, if not the biggest question on defense for Oregon going into spring football is who's stepping up along the defensive line. Now, they have 6 blue chip recruits that are interior defensive linemen for the most part from the 2023 class who all redshirted last year. Except I think one might have played in too many games, but they all redshirted, and some combination of 2 or 3 of those guys are going to be either starters or regular rotation players. Then you have the 5-star true freshman Aiden Breland coming in. Jericho Johnson, a 4-star, was a pretty highly touted recruit. I think he's a little big and probably has to slim himself down to get to his college playing weight. But I think overall, it's a very deep and talented but unproven unit on the interior. At the edge position, though, nothing but returners. You've got Jordan Birch at defensive end, Amarion Winston, Mateo Uyunglele, Blake Purchase, and Tatum Tuioti. Those 5 guys were all playing on the edge of the 4-2-5 defensive front for Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoy, the defensive coordinator, and Chris Hampton, the co-DC and safeties coach. So that position group is going to be the same, but the interior is where the questions come in.
Yeah, so as we head to the edge, you talked about Uyunglele, and of course, he turned out to be an impact player right out of the gate.
Yep.
So you're comfortable with what they've got coming off the edge. It's more about stopping the run in the middle, getting a push toward the pocket at the quarterback's face.
Yeah, I think that's where, your defensive line steps up the most is against the run. Certainly getting interior pressure is a part of it, but, typically the leaders in sacks are defensive ends, or in Oregon's case last year, blitzing safety in Evan Williams. So I think that the Ducks are in a good position to showcase, the recruiting classes that they've put together over the last couple of years. And I'm more than a little excited to see, how that all shakes out and, who rises to the top of the depth chart and who kind of falls back, who's just a rotation player, because it's anybody's guess. Like, how do you differentiate when you haven't seen significant snaps between this 4-star defensive lineman and that 4-star defensive lineman? Like, if you go watch their huddle film, they're all going to be impressive, of course. That's why Oregon offered and recruited them and has kept them around in the first place. So, it could be a lot of different guys, and they rotate a lot of defensive linemen. I think last year they probably played somewhere in the 8 to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They probably played about 9 defensive linemen consistently last year between the interior and the edge spots. So, you lose 4. That means, you've brought in 1. But there are still 3 spots there that you're going to need guys to be a part of. So definitely fascinated to see how that all shakes out. And, I think Oregon can get better pressure on the quarterback, or at least better sack totals from their defensive linemen.
We see Jeffrey Bossa near the top of the tackles list right there, 72 last year. Also had a pick six. Look at that. Don't recall that one, but
Texas Tech, the clincher down in Lubbock,
that
week
was the
2.
clinch. Okay,
Yeah, that was
in
the
the
clincher.
38-30,
That was the
to give them the
and
breathing room.
also Oregon was a 6.5 point favorite in that game. Jeff Bossa is his nickname should be Jeffrey Backdoor Cover Bossa.
It certainly should be, and so I don't like him quite as much as I did before, because I remember thinking, "Oh, this is a great pick." I took
Texas Tech plus 6.5, too many points. It's the old, I thought Oregon would win, but Texas Tech would cover.
Yes,
Look how smart I am. And then boom, pick six, 38-30 final.
Yes, you read my mind, and that's exactly what was going through my mind watching that. A really good football game.
Fantastic game.
So, yeah, Bossa is tremendous. And then Justin Jacobs, he was nicked up early, but he made a late push as one of the best players in the conference at his position.
Yeah, I like what Jacobs brings. Came over from Iowa last year. Unfortunately, didn't really make his debut until about the Washington State game, which was week 7. And I thought he was fantastic. You know, he's physical, can get after the quarterback a little. His only sack of the year did come in that Washington State game, but you know, I hope he's not thinking about it. I, of course, have thought about it far too much, but he was at fault for the touchdown that Washington scored to clinch the Pac-12 title game on 3rd and goal. You know, it was his coverage assignment on the tight end, basically a one-man route, and his eyes got caught in the backfield. I don't know if that's motivating him to play even better next year, but certainly when he was on the field, I think Oregon felt it. And early in the season, you know, you had Bryce Betcher, who is a 2-sport athlete with the Ducks. He starts in center field for the Oregon baseball team, and Mark Wazikowski. And, you know, I think that he did a lot of nice things. He was a standout in the spring game. He started at linebacker and, you know, had some nice moments, but overall, he's not the same caliber of player that Justin Jacobs is. So, you know, Jeff Bossa, Justin Jacobs is your money and your Mac backers. That is a really, really good, you know, productive and experienced tandem.
Talking Ducks, we got Spencer McLaughlin here. So here we go as we look at the Oregon secondary. You had to be rough on your rivals here, taking Jabbar Muhammad.
Yeah, I don't think that one went over very well up in Montlake, but Oregon's certainly happy to have him because we know how good he is capable of being, and how good he was last year, and how good he'll probably be this year for the Ducks secondary. And when you talk about the questions on Oregon's defense, it's defensive tackles number 1, and it is secondary number 2. The only surefire starters that I can give you right now are Kobe Savage, the Kansas State transfer, at safety, and Jabbar Muhammad at corner. That's it. And you got 5 DBs on the field at all times. And again, you know, guys get rotated in and out. So, you know, last year, Oregon probably had to go about, you know, with some injuries, 8 to 9 deep in the defensive secondary. And I can tell you the top 2. But as for the order of how other guys are, it's a mystery, because you've got Brandon Johnson coming over from Duke as a nickel, where he's 2-time All-ACC honorable mention over the last couple of seasons. And then you've got, you know, Nico Reed, who also played nickel, but also played some outside corner. Jalil Florence was the starting corner until he got hurt, and he's not going to play in spring football because he's injured. So how healthy will he be next year? I don't know. We'll see how well he's able to recover. They brought in Cam Alexander, who was an All-American Conference selection from UTSA, and they've still got Tysheem Johnson there, who played nickel and, you know, safety over the top as well. So a lot of options. Frankly, I have no idea how it's going to look. I really don't. They also brought in the number 1 JUCO corner in Sione Lalea, who, you know, could switch over and play safety if needed, but I have no idea. I honestly, Mark, have no idea. This is one of the things I'm going to look for in the spring game, and, you know, reading spring practice reports and whatnot, is who's the first, who are the first 5 defensive backs Oregon puts on the field when they play August 31st at Autzen Stadium against Idaho. My guess right now, you'd have Savage at a safety, Tysheem Johnson a safety, Brandon Johnson nickel, Jabbar Muhammad 1 corner, and probably Jalil Florence the other corner. That'd be my guess, and I feel like 40% confident in that.
Brandon Johnson, I see 32 games played, a lot of football there at Duke, 56 tackles last year. And Kobe Savage, he's a bit of a ball hawk, 3 picks the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and Oregon's been missing that from their safeties. I mean, they've had, I mean, frankly, by Oregon standards, they've had below average safety play. In 2021, Verone McKinley led the country in interceptions and, wasn't a huge NFL guy, but Oregon just hasn't had a lot of playmakers at safety over the last couple of years that have been able to translate, some physical talents perhaps, or being kind of highly touted recruits or coveted transfers. Just hasn't really translated on the field. Tyshim Johnson had 2 picks last year, and both of them were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And that's great, but that's where he's thriving. And if you're talking about rangy, ball-hawking safeties over the top to break up passes and intercept the ball, Oregon just hasn't had that really since Verone McKinley left. And I think they've been searching for that, and we'll see if they found that in the form of Kobe Savage or Brandon Johnson.
Of course, Spencer, you know that the plate of a field goal kicker is what it is. And if anyone across the country that follows college football is asked, name one special teams play by the Oregon Ducks last year, or maybe even one play, and that's the only one you could.
We know the play. We know we know the moment. Oregon, loses Camden Lewis, and he's out of eligibility, and I know there are a lot of Duck fans that are happy to see him go. He had a really good 2022 season. He got off to a great start in 2023, and then the back half of 2023, there's no other way to put it. He was terrible. He was terrible. He missed the kick against Washington that would have sent the game to overtime. And, then you went on over the course of the year and he missed some kicks that would have, put Oregon up in key spots to help put the game away. You think of USC and Oregon State, and the Ducks were able to overcome those misses. But I think in the second half of the year, he was something like 6 of 12 on field goals. That's just not, that's not going to cut it. The week after the Washington missed kick, which of course, you just feel for the kid because he's going to feel like he lost the game when he alone did not. Certainly he had a chance to prolong the game, and he missed on that opportunity, and it was a very makeable kick. The conditions were fine, wasn't some crazy amount of wind, 42 yards, should be well within your range, and he just missed it. He just happened to miss it. Then he came back next week, and Oregon on their first drive marches down the field against Washington State. They stall out. Then he misses that field goal too. And after that miss, he never, I don't think he ever got back quite right. He did have a great Pac-12 championship game, but, at that point, Oregon fans were ready for a change. Well, I'll just say they were ready for a change. And so they bring in Atticus Sappington. You're talking about not being kind to your rivals in the transfer portal. Jamar Muhammad from Washington, Atticus Sappington from Oregon State. Sappington should be the kicker. He was 13 of 14 on field goals last year. I'll take that every day of the week. I don't need you to be able to hit 50 and 55 yarders and everything like that. Just from 45 and in, can you miss no more than like 2 field goals all year, maybe 3? That'd be great. That would be outstanding. 13 of 14, I'd take it right here, right now, and I think that helps Oregon in the fall.
Of course, we're talking spring football here, Spencer, so a lot of this gets worked out in the spring in regards to coverage units, who's going to return kicks. A lot of that has yet to be worked out, but what do we know at this point in terms of all those specialty units across the board?
Yeah, I think Tez Johnson is your punt returner. He did a nice job last year, but I've talked about this on Locked On Ducks multiple times. Oregon's kick return game over the last several years has been straight up awful. I don't know how else to describe it. Last year, Oregon did not have a single solitary kick return over 25 yards. They had one, I think the longest from Gary Bryant was 24 yards. Now, are there more touchbacks than there used to be? Yes, absolutely. I watch a lot of college football games, though, and I see plenty of other teams in power conferences returning the ball out to the 30, 35, 40-yard line or getting it into plus territory. Oregon hasn't had a kick return touchdown or punt return since 2019. And that's kind of a crazy thing to say, but that's just where the special teams units have been. I don't know if it's the blocking or just not having the right return man. I tend to think it's the latter. And I think the kick return spots should be a wide open competition. You put true freshmen back there, you put position players, whomever. Now, I'm not a fan of putting someone back there that, is integral to the offense. And if he suffers an injury on that play, then the offense is screwed. But if you've got like a number 3 running back, for instance, or a receiver who's down on the depth chart, or a defensive back that's only playing on special teams, if you got somebody like that, okay. And the only exception is, of course, is like a DeAnthony Thomas type. Like he's a starter on offense. If he gets hurt on a kick return, that's detrimental. But that guy's just so explosive, dynamic. You can't not have him, fielding kicks back there. So I think this should be a wide open competition. I don't know if it is, but that's kind of the third thing that I'm watching with this Oregon team. I feel confident about, what the offense will look like. I'm not confident about what the defensive line or secondary will look like. But the third thing that I'm looking at is who returns kicks. I think Tez Johnson does a nice job returning punts, but he's very skinny. And the college is not yet adapting the new NFL kickoff rule to limit injuries and whatnot. So I don't know if I want Tez Johnson back there returning kicks, but it's got to be better. Like it's just crazy to see an entire season where you don't have a kick return over 25 yards. That means, typically when a ball is fielded on a kickoff and return, it's inside the 5-yard line, right? Unless there's some pooch kick, but typically you're inside the 5. That means every time Oregon returned a kick last year, they didn't get to the 30-yard line. Not a single time. Did not reach forget the 35 or the 40. They didn't reach the 30-yard line. So I think the return game can improve dramatically for the Ducks.
Spencer, I'm seeing this completely different than you. I'm just figuring they don't want to bring it out close to the 50-yard line. They don't want to compromise Bo Nix's total yardage numbers. These short drives aren't going to help him.
Yeah, the object is to score points. And if you've got better starting field position, you got a better chance of scoring.
It could be one heck of a run for the Big Ten championship between this squad and Ohio State. Those are the two that everyone's talking about. Not that no one else could be a factor for sure, but these are the two that seem to be the most locked and loaded.
Yeah, I think so. Their rosters this offseason were already going to be good, and then they've had great off seasons. You look at Ohio State adding Quinshon Judkins or adding Caleb Downs and Will Howard, and the number of returners they have. Both these teams have something in common. Their head coach is returning after disappointing 11 or 12 win seasons, and then, which is, just a heck of a thing to say in college football, but such is the way of life. And then they got a bunch of key returners on both sides of the ball. For Ohio State, it's guys like Jack Sawyer or JT Tuimoloau, you know who I'm talking about. And then you bring in big time transfers as well, and both teams have done that. They're the betting favorites for a reason, and that reason is that on paper they're the two best teams, but last time I checked, games are played on turf.
Yeah, that certainly showed up in Columbus in 2021.
Yes, it did, because Oregon was about a 2-touchdown underdog in that game. What do you know? And that game at Autzen Stadium on October 12th, probably going to be college game day. If everyone does what they're supposed to do leading into that game, I don't know how Oregon, Ohio State in the new look Big Ten in Eugene or in Columbus, wouldn't matter. I don't know how that's not going to be game day that week. It should be the biggest game in all of college football. And I don't think it'll define the playoff or Big Ten title hopes for either team, but I think it'll, make a big statement and certainly help on your way towards winning a conference championship.
What do people need to know about your latest out there?
Well, Locked On College Football, formerly Locked On Pac-12, RIP, is Monday through Friday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Still coverage of the former Pac schools on there and the current Pac-12 and kind of what their rebuild plans are. I talked about that on Wednesday's show and all the time as it pops up. But everything with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth on Locked On College Football, and then Locked On Ducks as well, Monday through Friday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And though this particular time of year is coming to end, I also do play-by-play for Southern Utah. That's what that flag is right there. And so fall is a busy time, let's just say. And I am ready for the summer. I love summer. I'm going to go back home, live in Oregon, from about May to August or so. But then I will return to Utah and be ready to call games again and have my Saturdays start at 8 a.m. and end at 2 in the morning.
Greatest sport on the planet, and that Spencer saying that after arriving from 18 holes of golf.
Yeah, I am a diehard golfer. Some of you out there who are familiar with my work may know that. I don't exactly hide that about myself. I don't know why I would, so I don't. But yeah, I played 18 earlier today. It was a good day on the course. I kind of kicked my friend's rear end a little bit. He got off to a slow start. I was hot out of the gates, and he wasn't able to recover. So that's the way that it goes sometimes. But he's done that to me on many occasions, and I can never get enough playing golf. But yeah, the best sport on planet Earth, that's college football. Best sporting event, March Madness, no doubt. But the best sport, start to finish, college football all day.
Sounds like that's the formula Dan Lanning would like on October 12th. We came up strong out of the gate, hit him in the mouth. They couldn't recover.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Score the first 10 points of the game and just never let them come back. I did not win the first 10 holes. That would be pretty ridiculous. But it never hurts to throw the first punch, especially when you're at home, right? When you're at home, get the crowd into it and get them all engaged and whatnot. But yeah, I can't wait for college football.